Before we begin, please note that the information provided in this video is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional legal advice. Divorce and family law are complex and vary significantly by state. You should always consult with a qualified attorney in your jurisdiction regarding your specific situation. This presentation does not create an attorney-client relationship. The single biggest mistake you can make in your divorce has nothing to do with your lawyer, the assets, or who gets the dog. The single most expensive soul-crushing mistake is walking into your first mediation session completely and utterly unprepared. It's an error that can cost you tens of thousands of dollars, months of agonizing stress, and the one thing you can never get back, your peace of mind. Most people treat mediation like a casual chat, a preliminary step before the real fight begins. That is a catastrophic misunderstanding. The mediation room is where your future is decided. It's not the pre-game show, it's the Super Bowl. And right now, you might be feeling that pre-game anxiety. Your stomach is in knots. Your mind is racing with 1,000 what-ifs. What do I say? What shouldn't I say? What documents do I need? What if they lie? What if I get emotional and agree to something I'll regret for the next 20 years? That feeling of being overwhelmed, of standing at the edge of a life-changing event without a map, that ends today. This video is your map. It is your step-by-step playbook to transform you from feeling anxious and uncertain into feeling confident, prepared, and in control of your own destiny. We are going to arm you with the knowledge, the strategy, and the tools to not just survive your first mediation session, but to master it. By the end of this series, you will know exactly what information to gather, how to organize your thoughts, how to define your goals, and most importantly, how to communicate those goals effectively so you can walk out of that room with a fair agreement that you can actually live with. We're going to turn your anxiety into action. So let's redefine what mediation actually is. Most people picture a courtroom drama. Two sides squaring off with a judge-like figure in the middle who will listen to both arguments and declare a winner. That is not mediation. A mediator is not a judge. They have zero power to force you or your spouse to do anything. Let me repeat that, because it is the most important sentence you will hear today. The mediator cannot make any decisions for you. Their job is to be a neutral third party, a facilitator of communication, a guide who helps you and your spouse find common ground to build your own agreement. You and only you hold the power. This means the outcome of your mediation rests almost entirely on the quality of your preparation. Imagine two people, we'll call them Alex and Ben, who are getting divorced. They both go to mediation. Alex spends the week before the session stewing in anger, replaying old arguments, and making a list of all the ways Ben has wronged him. He walks into the room with a single goal: to win. He makes demands. He interrupts. He sees every suggestion from Ben as an attack. After 3 hours, they are further apart than when they started. The session is a failure. They've wasted $1,000 and are now headed straight for a nasty, expensive court battle. Now consider Ben. Ben spends his week differently. He's hurt and sad, but he knows that emotion won't solve the practical problem of separating a shared life. He spends his time gathering documents, bank statements, pay stubs, the mortgage statement. He uses a simple budget worksheet to understand what his post-divorce life will actually cost. He thinks hard about what's truly important to him, not what he wants to win, but what he needs to move forward. He needs to ensure the kids are stable, so keeping them in the family home for a few more years is a priority. He walks into the room with a clear, organized folder and a list of goals, not demands. He's calm. He's prepared. He listens. When Alex demands the house, Ben doesn't argue. Instead, he says, "I understand why the house is important. Let's look at the numbers together and see how we can make that work, while also making sure we're both financially stable." Ben transformed the conversation from a fight into a shared problem-solving session. Ben walked out with a fair agreement, saving himself a year of litigation and over $50,000 in legal fees. You want to be Ben. This guide will show you how. The very first step, before you even print a single bank statement, is a profound mental shift. You must change your entire approach to the situation. This is the foundation upon which everything else is built. There are 3 core mindset shifts you need to make starting right now. First, you must shift from being an adversary to being a co-problem solver. I know this sounds impossible. This is the person you are divorcing. The emotions are raw. But for the purposes of these next few hours in mediation, you are not husband and wife anymore. You are 2 business partners dissolving a long-term venture. Your business is called Our Shared Life, Incorporated. You have shared assets, shared debts, and possibly shared shareholders in the form of your children. Your job is not to crush your business partner and leave them with nothing. Your job is to untangle the business in a way that is logical, fair, and allows both of you to exit the partnership financially intact. When you feel the anger rising, when you want to bring up that thing they did 3 years ago, stop, take a breath, and ask yourself, is what I'm about to say helping us solve the problem, or is it just feeding the conflict? If it's not helping to solve the problem, do not say it. The second mindset shift is to focus on your interests, not your positions. This is a classic negotiation tactic, and it is pure gold in a divorce mediation. A position is a hardline demand. I want the house. I want 50% of your retirement account. I want sole custody. Positions are rigid. They invite a yes or no response and immediately create a battle. An interest, on the other hand, is the underlying need or reason behind your position. Why do you want the house? The interest might be, I need stability for our children, and I want to avoid the disruption of them changing schools. Why do you need a portion of the retirement account? The interest is, I need to ensure I have a secure financial future and can afford to retire someday. See the difference? When you state your position, I want the house, your spouse's immediate reaction is to dig in their heels and say, no way, I want the house. But when you explain your interest, my main concern is keeping the kids in their school district and giving them stability, it opens up a world of possibilities. Maybe you keep the house. Or maybe your spouse keeps the house and pays you enough for you to rent a great apartment in the same school district. Maybe you sell the house and both move into new places in the same neighborhood. Focusing on the why behind the what allows for creative solutions that a battle over positions will never uncover. Before your meeting, for every single thing you think you want, ask yourself why. 5 times. Drill down to the core interest. That is your true goal. The third and perhaps most difficult mindset shift is to do your absolute best to detach your emotions from your financial decisions. Divorce is an emotional process. It's a form of grief. You will feel anger, sadness, betrayal, and fear. All of those feelings are valid. But the mediation table is not the place to process them. That's what a therapist, a good friend, or a support group is for. The mediation table is a business meeting. Making permanent financial decisions based on temporary emotional pain is a recipe for disaster. Don't agree to give up your claim to the retirement account just to end the conversation because you feel guilty. Don't fight to the death over a worthless piece of furniture just to spite your ex. This is where you have to become a different person for a few hours. I call it the business partner visualization. Before you walk into the room, literally picture yourself putting on a suit of armor. This armor protects you from the emotional barbs. Underneath it, you're still you, but on the outside, you are the calm, rational CEO of your own life. You are there to make the best possible deal for your future, not to relitigate the past. If the conversation becomes too emotionally charged, it is perfectly acceptable to say, I need to take a 5-minute break. Go to the restroom, splash some water on your face, breathe, and put the armor back on before you return to the table. Mastering these 3 mindsets, from adversary to problem solver, from positions to interests, and from emotional to logical, is the secret weapon of a successful mediation. It costs you nothing, but its value is immeasurable. It sets the stage for everything that comes next. Now, with that problem-solving mindset in place, we move from the abstract to the concrete. We're going to build the factual foundation for your entire negotiation. Imagine trying to build a house without a blueprint. You'd have arguments over where the walls go, the plumbing would be a disaster, and the whole thing would likely collapse. In divorce mediation, your financial documents are that blueprint. They replace guesswork with facts, and arguments with arithmetic. This next step is arguably the most labor-intensive part of your preparation, but it is also the most empowering. It's time to gather your financial information. Let's be clear about why this is so critical. First, it's about transparency. Nothing poisons a mediation faster than the suspicion that one person is hiding something. By gathering and organizing your documents, you're sending a powerful message. I'm here to deal with the reality of our situation. I'm not playing games. This can dramatically lower the temperature in the room and encourage your spouse to be equally forthcoming. Second, it saves an immense amount of time and money. Your mediator works by the hour. If your first session is spent with both of you shrugging your shoulders about your 401k balance or your monthly credit card debt, you are literally paying a highly trained professional to watch you scroll through your phone. Coming prepared with the numbers allows the mediator to start doing their real job, helping you find solutions. And finally, this process is for you. For many people, one spouse handled the majority of the finances. If that was you, this is your moment to get reacquainted with your financial life. If it wasn't you, this is your moment to become an expert in it. Knowledge dispels fear. When you understand the numbers, you can't be easily intimidated or misled. You can advocate for yourself from a position of strength and clarity. In the United States, this isn't just a good idea. It's a legal requirement. Every state has laws mandating full and frank financial disclosure in a divorce. Hiding assets isn't a clever strategy. It's a crime called perjury, and the consequences can be severe, from losing the asset entirely to facing fines and even jail time. So let's do this right from the start. We're going to break this down into a manageable system. Think of it as creating a complete financial snapshot of your marriage. We'll organize it into 5 core categories: income, assets, debts, expenses, and insurance. First, income. This is the money flowing into the household. You'll want to gather pay stubs for both you and your spouse if you have access for at least the last 3 months. These show your current real-time earnings. Then you need the big picture. W-2s and 1099s for the last 2 to 3 years. These documents show your gross earnings year over year, which is crucial for calculating things like child support and spousal support. Finally, and most importantly, gather your tax returns. Get the last 3 years of your federal and state tax returns, including all the schedules and attachments. Tax returns are the Rosetta Stone of a family's finances. They don't just show income. They can point to investment gains, business interests, rental properties, and more. If you have a business, you'll also need the last 3 years of business tax returns and a current profit and loss statement. Second, assets. This is everything you own. We'll break this down further. For real estate, your house, a vacation home, a rental property, you'll need the deed if you have it, the most recent mortgage statement showing the principal balance, and your latest property tax bill, which often shows the assessed value. If you've had a recent appraisal, grab that too. Next, bank accounts. Get statements for the last 12 months for all checking, savings, and money market accounts, whether they're in your name, your spouse's name, or held jointly. This helps show how money has been moving. For investments, you need the most recent statements for any brokerage accounts, 401(k)s, 403(b)s, IRAs, pensions, stock options, or any other retirement vehicle. The statement will show the account type, the current value, and whether it's a pre-tax or post-tax account, which is incredibly important. Don't forget vehicles. Find the titles and any loan statements for cars, boats, or RVs. You can easily look up the approximate value on a site like Kelley Blue Book. Also, think about valuable personal property. Do you have fine art, expensive jewelry, antiques, or collections? If the value is significant, you may need a formal appraisal, but for now, just making a list is a great start. Third, debts. This is everything you owe. It's just as important as the asset side of the equation. Gather the most recent statements for all liabilities. This includes your mortgage, any home equity lines of credit, credit card statements for all cards, car loans, student loans, personal loans, and any significant medical debt. The easiest way to organize this is to create a simple list. Write down the name of the creditor, the total amount owed, and the minimum monthly payment. Having this clear summary will make discussions about who pays for what infinitely more productive. Fourth, expenses. This is where the money goes. You need to create a budget, often called a statement of income and expenses or a financial affidavit, depending on your state. This document details your monthly living costs. Its purpose is twofold. It helps determine one spouse's need for support and the other's ability to pay it. But more than that, it's a reality check for your own future. You need to know what it will actually cost to live on your own. Don't just guess at these numbers. Go through your last 6 to 12 months of bank and credit card statements and categorize your spending. Housing, utilities, groceries, gas, car maintenance, kids' school costs, extracurriculars, clothing, healthcare costs, personal grooming, entertainment. Be thorough and be realistic. This document will be the basis for your post-divorce financial life. Finally, the fifth category, insurance. What protects you? Gather the declaration pages for your health, dental, and vision insurance policies. Who is the policyholder? What is the monthly premium? Who is covered? Also, find any life insurance policies. Note the company, the death benefit, and very importantly, the cash value if it's a whole life policy. These can be considered marital assets. And of course, your homeowners and auto insurance policies. Now, I know this sounds like a mountain of paperwork. It is. But you climb a mountain one step at a time. Start today. Create a folder on your computer, or get a physical binder with dividers for each of the 5 categories. Find one document, your last pay stub, download it, put it in the income folder. That's a win. Tomorrow, find your last bank statement. Another win. The key is to start early and be systematic. If you don't have access to certain documents because your spouse controls them, don't panic. Gather everything you can access. Make a list of what's missing. This is a normal part of the process, and the mediator will help you and your spouse exchange the necessary information. This isn't about a gotcha moment. It's about building that complete, shared blueprint. I once worked with a client, let's call her Jane, who was terrified of this process. Her husband had managed every penny for 20 years. She felt powerless. Her homework was simply to gather what she could. She came to the first mediation session with a single, neatly organized binder. It contained her pay stubs, the kids' school and medical expense receipts, and the credit card statements for the one card in her name. It wasn't everything, but it was her part of the story. The act of gathering and organizing that information fundamentally shifted her perspective. She walked into that room not as a victim, but as a participant. It sent a clear signal to her husband and to the mediator that she was taking this seriously and was ready to engage. That binder was her first step toward financial independence. This financial snapshot is the bedrock of your mediation. It's not just paperwork. It's the objective reality that allows you to move past the emotional he said, she said, and into the logical realm of problem solving. It's the raw material you and your spouse will use, with the mediator's guidance, to build 2 new, stable and secure futures. Once you have this factual foundation in place, you can begin to think about what you actually want to build with it. And that brings us to the next critical piece of preparation: defining your goals. Not just what you want, but why you want it. This distinction between what you want and why you want it is arguably the single most important concept to grasp before you walk into that mediation room. It's the difference between positional bargaining and interest-based negotiation, and it's the secret key that unlocks solutions you never thought were possible. Let me tell you a classic story that mediators love because it illustrates this perfectly. 2 sisters are in the kitchen, fighting over the last orange. Both of them are adamant. I need that orange. No, I need that orange. They go back and forth, their positions hardening. They could go to a judge, or in this case their mom, who might just say, fine, you can't agree, so I'm splitting it down the middle. They each get half an orange. It's a compromise, right? Seems fair. But are they happy? No. Neither one got what she really wanted. Now let's rewind. What if, instead of just stating their position, I want the orange, they explored their interests, the why behind the want? The first sister might say, I need the orange because I'm baking a cake and the recipe calls for the zest from a whole orange peel. The second sister might say, well, I need the orange because I'm thirsty and I want to make a full glass of fresh squeezed orange juice. Suddenly the light bulb goes on. The conflict vanishes. The first sister can take the entire peel, and the second sister can take the entire fruit to juice it. By understanding the underlying interest, they both went from a 50% compromise to a 100% win. This is the magic of mediation. Your divorce is that orange. When you walk into mediation saying, I want the house, that's a position. It's a demand. It immediately puts your spouse on the defensive, ready to fight for their own position. No, I want the house. You're now locked in a tug of war, and the best you can hope for is to split it down the middle, which often means selling it and nobody getting what they want. But if you prepare by asking yourself why you want the house, you uncover your true interests. Is it because you want stability for the children so they don't have to change schools? Is it because you feel an emotional attachment to the home you built together? Is it because you can't afford to move right now and it provides financial security? Or is it, if you're being really honest, because you don't want your ex to have it? Each of those whys opens a different door to a different solution. If the interest is keeping the kids in their school district, maybe there's a rental available 2 blocks away that's more affordable. If the interest is emotional attachment, maybe you can agree that you get the first right to buy them out once you're financially stable. If the interest is financial security, maybe keeping the house with its mortgage, taxes, and surprise roof repairs is actually the least secure option, and getting a larger share of the retirement accounts would better serve that goal. You see? Moving from your position to your interest changes the entire game from a battle to a problem-solving session. So your next homework assignment is to sit down, away from your spouse, and define your interests across the three main categories of your divorce. First, your children. Let's move beyond the combative language of custody and visitation. Instead, think about creating a durable long-term parenting plan. Your goal isn't to win the kids. Your goal is to raise healthy, happy, well-adjusted human beings who feel loved and supported by both of their parents. So, what interests support that goal? Ask yourself, what do I envision for our co-parenting relationship in 1 year? In 5 years? Do you want a business-like, parallel parenting style where you communicate only through an app about logistics? Or do you hope for a more collaborative, friendly relationship where you can both attend soccer games and sit on the same side of the field? There's no right answer, but you need to know what you're aiming for. How do you want major decisions to be made about their health, education, and religious upbringing? Jointly, with one person having the final say? What does an ideal week look like for your children? Where do they rest their head each night to feel the most secure? How will holidays, birthdays, and summer vacations be handled in a way that creates new, happy memories instead of annual anxiety? Your interest isn't a specific schedule. Your interest is your children's stability, their sense of routine, and their ability to have a strong relationship with both parents. Frame every thought around that. Second, your finances, assets and debts. This is where that financial inventory you created becomes your playbook. Look at each major asset, the house, the cars, the bank accounts, the retirement funds, and for each one ask yourself, what is my long-term interest related to this item? Don't just say, I want the 401k. Ask why. Is it because you need to secure your retirement after being out of the workforce? Is it because you need liquid cash to put a down payment on a new place to live? Knowing the why allows for creativity. Maybe instead of splitting a retirement account and taking a huge tax penalty, you get the house and your spouse keeps their full 401k. Maybe you trade your interest in their pension for the brokerage account. Think about the house. Is your interest truly in owning that specific property? Or is your interest in having a safe, stable home for you and your kids? That home could be a different one. A smaller one without the painful memories and the crushing mortgage payment. The goal isn't the asset itself. The goal is what the asset provides for your future. Same for debt. Your interest isn't just to dump it all on your ex. Your shared interest is to preserve both of your credit scores and financial futures as much as possible. Who is in the better position to pay off the credit card? Who should refinance the car loan? The goal is to detach from the asset or the debt as a symbol of winning or losing, and see it as a tool, a piece of a puzzle you're trying to build for your new life. Third, financial support. This includes both child support and spousal support, or alimony. This is often the most contentious area because it feels so personal. But again, let's focus on the interest, not the position. The interest behind child support is simple. To ensure your children's needs are met and their standard of living is maintained as consistently as possible across two homes. It is not a punishment for the person paying or a prize for the person receiving. It's for the kids. Period. Your goal is to make sure they have what they need. Spousal support is about transition. The underlying interest is often to ensure both parties can land on their feet after the divorce. If one person sacrificed their career to raise children, their interest might be receiving support for a defined period to go back to school or get job training, allowing them to become self-sufficient. The interest of the paying spouse is often predictability and finality. Thinking in these terms, what is the support meant to accomplish? Turns it from a bitter fight over money into a logistical plan for two separate futures. To tie all of this together, I want you to do a powerful visualization exercise. I call it the Future You meditation. Find a quiet moment, close your eyes, and I want you to imagine yourself 5 years from today. The divorce is a distant memory. It's just a chapter in your past. What does your life look like? Where are you living? What are you doing for work or for fun? How do you feel when you wake up in the morning? Peaceful? Secure? Independent? Now picture your children. How are they doing? What is your relationship with them like? Finally, picture your relationship with your ex-spouse. What is it? Is it tense and angry? Or is it civil and cooperative? Can you be at your child's wedding one day and smile? The feelings and the life you just pictured, that asterisk is your real interest. That's the ultimate goal. Now write it all down. Not as a list of demands for your spouse, but as a personal mission statement for your mediation. My goal is a peaceful co-parenting relationship. My goal is to be financially independent and secure within 3 years. My goal is to create a life for my children where they are shielded from conflict. This document becomes your North Star, When you're in the mediation room and emotions are running high, and you're tempted to dig in your heels over who gets the silver flatware, you can mentally pull out this document and ask yourself, does fighting over this serve my ultimate goal of a peaceful future? 9 times out of 10, the answer will be no. It will keep you focused on the big picture, on building your new life, not just dismantling your old one. Now that you have a clear picture of your own needs and goals, it's time to prepare for the other person in the room. Because mediation isn't about winning your points, it's about solving a shared problem. And to do that, you have to understand what they truly want and why. It's one of the hardest shifts to make. For months, maybe years, you've been living in a state of conflict. Your brain has been wired for defense, for protecting your own heart, your own interests, your own sanity. You've built walls. And now I'm asking you to find a window in that wall and try to see the world from the other side. This isn't about forgiveness. It isn't about condoning behavior you find unacceptable. It is about strategy. In a courtroom, the lawyer who best understands his opponent's case is the one who wins. In mediation, the person who best understands their spouse's underlying needs is the one who crafts a durable, satisfying agreement. You are shifting from being adversaries in a fight to being co-architects of a new future. You have a shared problem. You have one set of assets, one set of debts, and 2 households to create. You have one family that now needs to exist in 2 separate homes. Arguing over who is to blame for this problem is like 2 people in a sinking rowboat furiously debating who drilled the hole. It doesn't matter. The immediate, shared problem is the water flooding the boat. You both have a profound, shared interest in not drowning. So, how do you actually do this? How do you start thinking like a problem solver instead of a combatant? It starts with an exercise that might feel uncomfortable, even impossible at first. I want you to take out a clean sheet of paper or open a new document. At the top, write your spouse's name. For the next 15 minutes, your job is to become them. You are going to write a list of what they want out of this divorce from their perspective. Not what you think they want as a way to hurt you. Not the cynical, worst-case scenario version. Try with genuine intellectual curiosity to step into their shoes. What are their 3 biggest fears right now? Are they terrified of being alone? Are they panicked about money, wondering how they'll ever afford to live on their own? Are they consumed with the fear of losing their relationship with the kids, of being relegated to a visitor in their own children's lives? Now, what does a win look like for them? What would they need to feel safe, secure, and whole on the other side of this? Maybe their identity is deeply tied to the house where you've lived for 20 years. Maybe their career took a backseat to yours, and their deepest need is to get the financial support and training to finally feel independent. Maybe what they want most is a predictable, stable co-parenting schedule, because their own childhood was chaotic and unpredictable. Write it all down using I statements from their perspective. I am scared I won't have enough for retirement. I need to keep the house because it's the only stable thing the kids have right now. I want 50-50 custody because I can't bear the thought of not being there to tuck my daughter in at night. The more you can articulate their potential point of view, the more powerful you become. You stop reacting to their anger and start seeing the fear or the need that's driving it. I once worked with a couple, let's call them David and Maria. David was absolutely insistent on selling the family home and splitting the profit immediately. Maria was devastated. She saw it as a cruel, punitive act. She accused him of wanting to make her and the kids homeless out of spite. The mediation was stuck before it even began. In a private session, I asked David to tell me why. Why the rush? Why not let Maria and the kids stay for a year or 2? His position was sell the house now, but his interest, the why behind it, was something else entirely. He finally admitted that his small construction business was on the verge of collapse. He had been hiding the debt from Maria for months out of shame. He needed his share of the home equity not to spite her, but to pay off his suppliers, avoid bankruptcy, and keep his business, the only source of income he had, from going under. Once Maria understood his interest wasn't cruelty, but desperation and fear, the entire dynamic shifted. They were no longer fighting about the house. They were working together on a new problem. How can we creatively use our assets to solve David's business crisis and provide stable housing for Maria and the kids? The solution they found was completely different from what either of them first proposed, and it saved them both. This is the single most important concept to grasp before you walk into mediation. The difference between positions and interests. A position is the non-negotiable demand. It's the what. I want the car. You can have the kids every other weekend and that's it. I'm not paying a dime of alimony. Positions are walls. They lead to impasse because if my position is, I want 100% of the pie, and your position is, I want 100% of the pie, we have nowhere to go. An interest is the underlying need, desire, or fear behind the position. It's the why. You don't want the car just because it's a car. You want it because it's the only reliable vehicle to get the kids to school, or because you need it for your job. The interest is reliable transportation. Once you identify that, you can brainstorm solutions. Maybe you keep the car. Maybe you sell it and you both get smaller, reliable cars. Maybe one person gets the car and the other gets a lump sum of cash to buy a new one. The position, I want the car, has only one outcome. The interest, I need reliable transportation, has dozens of potential solutions. So, for every major issue, parenting, property support, do this analysis. Draw 2 columns. In the first, write what you think your spouse's position is. She wants to stay in the house. He wants 50-50 custody. She wants my entire pension. In the second column, brainstorm all the possible interests or needs that could be driving that position. Why does she want the house? Interest, stability for the kids. Emotional attachment, fear of moving. The social status of the neighborhood. Why does he want 50-50 custody? Interest, a deep desire to be an involved father. Fear of being replaced. A genuine belief it's best for the kids. Or sometimes a desire to reduce his child support obligation. Be honest about all the possibilities, both the noble and the not so noble. By mapping this out, you're not just preparing for their arguments, you're preparing to solve the real problems. When your spouse says, I want X, you won't just hear the demand. You'll be thinking, okay, that's the position. What's the interest underneath it? And how can I meet that interest in a way that works for me, too? This transforms you from a passive recipient of demands into an active, strategic problem solver. Finally, a crucial part of understanding their side is preparing to acknowledge it. This doesn't mean you agree with it. It doesn't mean you have to apologize for things you don't feel sorry for. It simply means validating their reality. In the heat of divorce, we often feel that if we acknowledge our spouse's pain, we are somehow accepting blame for it. That's not true. You can acknowledge their reality without invalidating your own. Before your mediation, think of a few true things you can say that will show you've heard them. Things like, I know this is incredibly hard for you too. I recognize that you were a great stay-at-home parent, and I appreciate the sacrifices you made for the family. I understand that your relationship with the kids is the most important thing in the world to you. Saying something like this at the beginning of a mediation can be like a magic key. It lowers defenses. It makes the other person feel seen. And when people feel seen, they are far less likely to dig their heels in and far more likely to engage in good faith negotiation. It's a simple act of strategic grace that can change the entire temperature of the room. By doing this homework, by truly trying to understand their fears, their needs, and their perspective, you arm yourself with the most powerful tool in any negotiation: knowledge. You're preparing not just for a meeting, but for a resolution. And that resolution starts with building the one thing that's been missing for so long: a budget. A real black and white, no-nonsense picture of your complete financial life. And let's be brutally honest for a moment. This might be the single most difficult, most emotionally draining, and most enlightening exercise you will undertake in this entire process. Why? Because a budget is not just a list of numbers. It's a story. It's the story of your life, your choices, your priorities, and your sacrifices, all laid bare in black and white. It's the $5 coffees that add up to hundreds. It's the cost of the soccer league you both wanted for your kid. It's the vacation you took last year to try and reconnect. Every line item holds a memory, and looking at it now can feel like an autopsy of your marriage. And that hurts. Acknowledge that. Let it hurt for a minute. But then you have to push through, because on the other side of that pain is power. The power of clarity. In the chaos of divorce, where emotions run high and accusations can fly, your budget becomes your anchor to reality. It silences the noise. It replaces vague statements like, you always spend too much money, with the factual reality of, our average monthly spending on dining out and entertainment for the past 6 months was $1,200. One is an attack, the other is a fact. And in mediation, facts are your currency. The mediator's job is to find a middle ground. But they can't do that if they don't know where the ground even is. Your budget provides that foundation. It's the starting point for every critical conversation about spousal support, child support, and how you will both survive and hopefully thrive in two separate households. Because let's face it, running two homes is almost always more expensive than running one. Your budget is the tool that shows exactly how much more expensive it will be. So how do you do it? How do you build this crucial document? First, forget fancy software if it intimidates you. A simple spreadsheet like Google Sheets or Excel is perfect. Even a physical notebook and a calculator will work. The tool is less important than the process. The process starts with gathering your evidence. You need to become a financial detective in your own life. Print out the last 3 to 6 months of every single bank statement, every credit card statement, and every pay stub for both you and your spouse if you have access to them. The more data you have, the more accurate your picture will be. Now here's the key, the part that most people miss. You are not creating one budget. You are creating two. This is so critically important. The first is your historical marital budget. This is a snapshot of your life as it is or as it was right before the separation. You're going to go through those bank and credit card statements line by line and categorize every single expense. Yes, everyone. Housing, utilities, groceries, car payments, gas, insurance, kids' activities, clothes, student loans, dinners out, Netflix subscriptions, dog food. Everything. The goal here is to establish what's known in legal terms as the marital standard of living. How much did it cost for your family unit to live each month? This number is often a benchmark for determining things like spousal support. You need to know it cold. The second, and arguably more important budget, is your projected post-divorce budget. This is the blueprint for your new life. This is where you map out what it will cost for you to live on your own, with the kids for whatever time you have them. And this requires some honest and sometimes painful forecasting. Let's break down the categories you need to build for this projected budget. Think of it as building your new life one brick at a time. First, housing. This is the biggest piece for most people. If you're staying in the marital home, what's the mortgage, property tax, and homeowner's insurance? Don't forget maintenance. The lawn needs mowing, the air conditioner will eventually break. These are real costs. If you're moving out, you need to research the actual cost of rentals in the area you want to live, in the school district you need. Look on Zillow. Call apartment complexes. Get real numbers. Don't just guess. Add in renter's insurance and the estimated cost of utilities: gas, electric, water, sewer, trash, internet. Next, transportation. Your car payment, your car insurance, which might go up or down as a single person, gas and maintenance. Be realistic about oil changes, new tires. These things happen. If you rely on public transportation, what's that monthly cost? Then food. This is a huge one. Look at your historical budget. How much did you spend on groceries and dining out? Now, how will that change? It might go down if you're cooking for one fewer person, but it might go up if you're now buying more convenience foods because you're a single parent juggling work and childcare. Be brutally honest with yourself. Now for the children. This category deserves its own sub-spreadsheet. It is not enough to just write kids' expenses. You must itemize. School lunches, school supplies, tuition if they're in private school, clothing, and remember they grow. Medical and dental costs, including co-pays and orthodontist bills. Extracurriculars, this is a big one. The cost of the soccer team, the piano lessons, the art classes, the summer camps. All of it. Don't forget the soft costs. Birthday party gifts for their friends, allowances, haircuts, field trips. The more detailed you are, the stronger your position will be when discussing child support. Child support isn't just for a roof and food. It's to allow the child to maintain their lifestyle as much as possible. You need to document what that lifestyle actually costs. Let's talk about healthcare. If you were on your spouse's health insurance, you need to price out your own plan or the cost of COBRA, which can be shockingly expensive. Add in your average monthly cost for copays, prescriptions, and any therapy or mental health support you or your children might need. This is not the time to neglect your well-being. Next, personal expenses. This is everything from your haircut to your gym membership to your cell phone bill. List all your subscriptions: Netflix, Spotify, Amazon Prime. It all adds up. And finally, don't forget debt and savings. List every single debt payment you will be responsible for. Student loans, credit card balances, personal loans. And please, please, please do not forget to pay yourself. Include a line item for savings and retirement contributions. Your future self will thank you. Building a secure future starts now, even if it's just $25 a month. It's about building the habit. Once you have this projected budget, you will have a powerful number. It's the number you need to survive and maintain a stable life for you and your children. When you walk into that mediation room, you're no longer dealing in hypotheticals. When your spouse says, "I can give you X amount in support," you can confidently reply, "I appreciate the offer, but based on a detailed projection of my post-divorce expenses, my actual monthly need is Y." Let's look at the numbers together. You see the shift? You've moved from a position of uncertainty to a position of fact-based confidence. This budget is your shield and your sword. It protects you from agreeing to a settlement that you can't actually live on, and it is the weapon you use gently factually to advocate for what you and your children truly need. The process of creating it is an act of self-advocacy. It's you taking control of the narrative of your future. You've just built the engine of your new financial life. You understand the fuel it needs to run every single month. But an engine is just one part of the vehicle. Next, we need to take a full inventory of the vehicle itself, every asset, every debt, every single thing you own together. We need to build your marital balance sheet. This marital balance sheet, it sounds like something from an MBA class, right? But I promise you, it's the single most important financial document you will create for your divorce. It's a complete top-to-bottom snapshot of your financial life together. Think of it like this. You can't decide how to split a pizza until you know for sure if it's a small, a large, or a party size. You need to know exactly what you're working with. This step isn't about placing blame or deciding who gets what. Not yet. This is about one thing, radical transparency. It's about laying all the cards on the table face up so that both you and your spouse can see the full picture. Because the number one thing that blows up mediations and sends people running to expensive lawyers is a financial surprise. An account that was forgotten. A debt that suddenly appears out of nowhere. Getting this right now builds a foundation of trust that will carry you through the entire process. Without it, you're building on quicksand. So let's build it. Grab a piece of paper, open a spreadsheet, whatever works for you. We're going to create two columns. On the left, assets. On the right, liabilities, or what we more commonly call debts. Let's start with the assets. And we have to begin with the biggest one for most people, the one that's not just a number on a page but a place filled with memories, the family home. The emotions tied to the house are real and they are powerful. We will deal with those. But for this exercise, for this balance sheet, you have to temporarily put those emotions on a shelf. Right now, we are just financial accountants. What do you need? First, you need the most recent mortgage statement. Find the line that says, principal balance. That's the amount you still owe. Write that down. Second, you need a realistic idea of what the house is worth today. A zestimate is a starting point, a ballpark figure. But it's not gospel. A better option is to look at recent, comparable sales in your neighborhood. The best option, if you can both agree to it, is a formal appraisal. For now, a good faith estimate is enough. The number we're really looking for is your equity. That's the market value minus what you owe. That equity figure is the asset we're working with. Next up, the source of so much confusion and anxiety, retirement accounts. 401ks, 403bs, IRAs, pensions, thrift savings plans. Here is the single most important thing you need to understand. In almost every state, the portion of a retirement account that was earned during the marriage is considered a marital asset, regardless of whose name is on the account. Let me say that again. Even if it's your 401k from your job that your spouse never contributed a dime to, the growth and contributions that happen between your wedding day and your date of separation are generally considered joint property. Think of it like a tree. Maybe you planted the sapling before you got married. That sapling is yours. But the 10 years of growth that tree experienced while you were married? That growth belongs to the marriage. So what do? You gather the most recent statement for every single retirement account. Your 401k, your spouse's 401k, that old IRA you rolled over a decade ago and forgot about. All of them. Find the total value as of the most recent statement date. Don't try to calculate the marital portion yourself just yet. That can get complicated, and it's something the mediator or a financial specialist will help you with. Your job right now is simply to identify every account and its total current value. Put it on the asset list. Now for the more liquid stuff. Cash and investments. This means every checking account, every savings account, every money market account, certificates of deposit. Go online, print the most recent statements. Get the exact balance. Don't estimate. Then think broader. Do you have a brokerage account? E-Trade, Fidelity, Charles Schwab? Stocks, bonds, mutual funds? List them in their current value. And yes, this includes cryptocurrency. That Coinbase account, that Bitcoin in a hard wallet, it's an asset. Its value fluctuates wildly, But you need to list what you have and its approximate current US dollar value. Let's move on to the tangible things. Vehicles. Cars, trucks, boats, motorcycles, RVs. For each one you need the year, make, and model. Then go to a site like Kelley Blue Book, KBB.com, and get a realistic private party value. Be honest about the condition. If the check engine light has been on for a year, don't list it in excellent condition. What about all the other stuff inside the house? The furniture, the electronics, the lawnmower. For 95% of couples, this is what we call de minimis. It's just not worth the time and energy to value every single spoon and sofa. Most couples are able to divide these personal property items amicably between themselves. However, if you have specific high-value items, fine art, expensive jewelry, a grand piano, a rare collection, these should be listed separately on the balance sheet. If you have a one-of-a-kind painting worth $50,000, that's a significant asset. If you're unsure of the value, you may need to get it appraised. And finally, a potentially complex one, business interests. If one or both of you owns a business, that business is an asset and it has a value. This is another area where, like retirement accounts, the value created during the marriage is typically a marital asset. For your first meeting, you don't need a full business valuation, which can be expensive. But you should gather the business's recent financial documents, a profit and loss statement, a balance sheet, and the last couple of years of tax returns. This gives the mediator a starting point. Okay, take a breath. That's the asset side. Now we flip the page to the liabilities, the debts. The first one is easy because we already have it, the mortgage on the house and any home equity lines of credit. List them here. Next, credit cards. This is a huge one. Gather the most recent statement for every single credit card you have, both joint cards and individual cards in your own names. The rule here is similar to assets. If the debt was incurred during the marriage for marital purposes, groceries, gas, vacations, kids' clothes, it's generally considered a marital debt, even if it's on a card in only one person's name. If you took out a card and secretly ran up $10,000 in debt on a trip to Vegas your spouse didn't know about, that might be a different story. But for now, the task is simple. List every card and the total balance owed. What about student loans? This is another gray area. The treatment of student loan debt varies significantly by state and circumstance. Was the loan taken out before the marriage? Or during? Did the family benefit from the degree that was earned? For now, don't worry about who is ultimately responsible. Just list the loan and the total amount outstanding. This is an issue you and the mediator will specifically discuss. Then list everything else. Car loans, personal loans from a bank, loans from family members, and a big one people often forget, tax debt. Do you owe the IRS or your state from a previous tax year? This is a critical marital debt that must be addressed. If you're not sure, it's worth checking. Now step back and look at your two columns. Your assets and your debts. This is your marital balance sheet. It might be written on a napkin or organized in a beautiful spreadsheet. The format doesn't matter. The content does. Your homework, your mission is to bring this document, as complete as you can possibly make it, to your first mediation session. Bring the backup statements too. Don't walk in with vague ideas. I think my 401k has about $100,000 in it. Is not helpful. Here is the statement from last month showing the balance is $121,452. Is incredibly helpful. This act of gathering and organizing is more than just a logistical task. It's an act of taking control. It demystifies the process. It takes this giant, scary monster called finances and turns it into a series of manageable numbers on a page. It replaces fear with facts. And when you operate from facts, you can make clear, logical, and fair decisions. This balance sheet is the map of your financial world. It shows you where everything is. It doesn't tell you how to divide it. That's the next step of the journey. But you cannot plan a journey without a map. We've now built the engine of your post-divorce life with a budget, and we've inventoried the entire vehicle with this balance sheet. But a vehicle, no matter how well-funded or accounted for, is just metal and wires without its purpose. For many of you, that purpose is centered on your children. So now we need to address the most precious cargo, the kids. We need to shift from the financial to the parental, and talk about how you're going to co-parent effectively, starting with your parenting plan. Your parenting plan is not just a document. It's the constitution for your new co-parenting relationship. It is the single most important thing you will create during this entire process to protect your children's well-being. Think of it as the operating manual for how you will raise your kids together while living apart. The goal here isn't to win. The goal is to create clarity, consistency, and predictability for your children in a time of massive upheaval. A strong, detailed parenting plan is the ultimate tool for minimizing future conflict, which is the greatest gift you can give your kids. So when you walk into mediation, you need to have thought through the two major pillars of any parenting plan. The first is what the courts call legal custody. This has nothing to do with where the children live. Legal custody is all about decision-making power. Who gets to make the big-picture choices about your children's lives? We're talking about 4 key areas: non-emergency healthcare, education, religious upbringing, and general welfare. Now, in mediation, the overwhelming standard and the goal you should be aiming for is joint legal custody. This means you and your co-parent will make these major decisions together. But simply writing "we will have joint legal custody" on a piece of paper is completely useless. It's a recipe for future disaster. Why? Because it doesn't say how you will make those decisions. This is where you can walk into mediation looking like a superstar. You need to propose a process. How will you actually consult each other? Will you use a co-parenting app like Our Family Wizard? Will you have a weekly 5-minute phone call every Sunday night to discuss the week ahead? Will all major decisions be proposed via email, with a required response time of 48 hours? And then the million-dollar question: what happens if you disagree? Imagine your daughter is a talented soccer player and gets invited to join an elite, expensive travel team. You think it's a fantastic opportunity. Your ex thinks it's too much pressure, too much money, and will interfere with her schoolwork. You're at a stalemate. A good parenting plan anticipates this. This is your what-if clause. You could agree that if you can't decide, you'll return to mediation for a single session. Or you could assign different spheres of influence. Maybe one parent is the designated tiebreaker for educational decisions, and the other is the tiebreaker for healthcare. The specific solution doesn't matter as much as having a solution in the first place. You are creating the fire extinguisher before the fire breaks out. The second major pillar is physical custody, or what we should really call the parenting time schedule. This is what everyone fixates on: where the kids will be and when. Forget the outdated terms like custodial and non-custodial parent. Today, it's all about creating a schedule that serves the children's best interests. There is no magic formula. The 50-50 schedule that works for your neighbor might be a disaster for your family. Your job is to come to mediation with a thoughtful proposal based on your kids' ages, their temperaments, and the practical realities of your lives, like your work schedules and the distance between your homes. Let's quickly run through a few common schedules so you know the language. There's the 2-2-5-5 schedule. This means the kids are with parent A for 2 days, parent B for 2 days, then back to parent A for 5 days, and then parent B for 5 days. The benefit is that the kids never go more than a few days without seeing each parent, which is great for younger children. The downside is the number of transitions. Then you have the week-on, week-off schedule. It's simple, it's predictable, and it involves far fewer handoffs, which can reduce conflict. This often works well for older kids and teens who can handle being away from one parent for a full 7 days. Another popular one is the 2-2-3 schedule. The kids are with parent A for 2 days, parent B for 2 days, and then with parent A for a long 3-day weekend. The next week it flips. Parent B gets the long weekend. The beauty of this is its consistency. For example, the kids are always with the same parent on Mondays and Tuesdays. The key is to think about what life will actually feel like for your child on each of these schedules. Don't just pick one because it sounds fair. Propose the one you genuinely believe will provide the most stability and comfort for your children, and be prepared to explain why. But a truly bulletproof parenting plan goes way beyond just the big-ticket items of decision-making and the weekly schedule. The details are what will save you from endless arguments down the road. You need to think about holidays and vacations. Don't just say, "We'll split the holidays." Which holidays? Make a list. Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's, spring break, the kids' birthdays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Halloween. How will you split them? Will you alternate them each year? So, you get Thanksgiving in even years, your ex gets it in odd years? For something like Christmas, will one parent get Christmas Eve and the other get Christmas Day? Or will you split Christmas Day itself at noon? Be specific. The more detail, the less there is to fight about later. For vacations, how much notice does a parent need to give for out-of-state travel? 30 days? 60? Is international travel allowed? If so, who holds the children's passports? A clear plan prevents a future where one parent books a non-refundable trip to Disney World, only to have the other parent refuse to cooperate at the last minute. Next, communication. This is a massive source of post-divorce conflict. Your plan should define the rules of engagement. How will you and your co-parent communicate about routine matters? Is it okay to text? Or should all communication be through a monitored co-parenting app to keep things businesslike? What's the expected response time for a non-emergency question? 24 hours? And what about communication with the kids when they're at the other parent's house? Can you call them whenever you want? Or should you agree to a specific time each evening for a FaceTime call, so you're not interrupting the other parent's time? Setting these boundaries protects everyone's peace of mind. You also need to plan the transitions, the actual handoffs. Where will they happen? Curbside? At school? Dropping off at school on Monday morning and picking up on Friday afternoon is often the best-case scenario because it eliminates parent-to-parent contact, which can be a flashpoint for conflict. Finally, you need to consider some of the more sensitive, forward-looking issues. One is called the right of first refusal. This means if a parent needs childcare for a specified period of time, say more than 4 hours or overnight, they must offer that parenting time to the other parent first before calling a babysitter or a family member. It's a way to maximize each parent's time with the children. And the other big one, introducing new significant others. This can be a minefield. Your parenting plan can set some ground rules to protect the kids. For example, you might agree that a new partner will not be introduced to the children until the relationship has been serious for at least 6 months. You might also agree that you won't have overnight guests of a romantic nature when the children are present for the first year after the divorce is final. This isn't about controlling your ex's life. It's about controlling the chaos for your kids and giving them time to adjust to their new reality. Walking into mediation having thoughtfully considered all of these details, the decision-making process, the schedule, the holidays, the communication protocols, shows the mediator that you are serious, prepared, and focused on your children. You're not there to fight over the past. You're there to build a functional future. This framework for their lives, their stability, and their well-being is paramount. And once that framework is in place, we can then address the crucial financial topic that is directly tied to it, child support. Child support is one of the most misunderstood and emotionally charged topics in any divorce. People come into mediation with so much fear and anxiety around this number. The paying spouse is terrified they're going to be financially crippled, left with nothing to live on. The receiving spouse is terrified they won't have enough to provide a stable home for the children. Both fears are valid. But the goal of mediation is to remove that fear by replacing it with facts and clarity. The first and most important fact is this: child support is not a punishment or a reward. It is not money you are paying to your ex. It is money you are investing in your children. It is parent-to-child money, designed to ensure that the children's needs are met and that they can enjoy a reasonably consistent standard of living in both homes. Think of it this way. When you were married, you and your spouse pooled your incomes to create a certain lifestyle for your family. Your kids got used to that lifestyle. The law recognizes that it's in the children's best interest to minimize the economic disruption of divorce as much as possible. Child support is the legal mechanism to achieve that. It helps balance the financial resources between the two new households, so one home isn't drastically different from the other. This consistency is incredibly important for a child's sense of stability and security. Now, here is the single most important thing you need to understand heading into your mediation. In nearly every state in the U.S., child support is not some arbitrary number the mediator or a judge pulls out of thin air. It is calculated using a specific, state-mandated formula. It's math. It's not a negotiation in the same way that dividing your furniture is a negotiation. The mediator's role isn't to decide what's fair. Their role is to help you and your spouse input the correct numbers into your state's specific calculator to see what the law prescribes. This is a massive anxiety reducer. When you realize it's a formula, the emotional temperature in the room drops instantly. The fight becomes about ensuring the inputs are accurate, not about arguing over the final number itself. So what are those inputs? What goes into this magic calculator? There are generally 4 or 5 key components. First, and most significantly, is the gross income of both parents. This is the big driver of the calculation. And income is a broad term. It's not just your base salary. It includes bonuses, commissions, tips, self-employment earnings, rental income, basically money from all sources. This is why being transparent with your financial documents is non-negotiable. You'll need to provide recent pay stubs, W-2s, and typically the last 2 or 3 years of tax returns. If one person is self-employed, they'll need to provide a detailed profit and loss statement. Hiding income is not only unethical, it's illegal and can have severe consequences. And what if one parent is voluntarily unemployed or underemployed to try and avoid paying support? The courts have a remedy for that called imputing income. A judge can assign an income to that parent based on their education, work history, and earning potential, and then run the support calculation based on that imputed number. The system is designed to prevent people from shirking their responsibility. The second major input is the parenting time schedule. Specifically, the number of overnight visits each parent has with the children per year. This is the direct link back to the parenting plan we just discussed. The formula uses this number because it recognizes that the more time a child spends in a parent's home, the more direct costs that parent is incurring for things like food, utilities, and daily necessities. In many states, as the number of overnights for the non-primary parent increases, their child support obligation may decrease because they are covering more of the child's expenses directly. This is why finalizing your parenting plan first is so critical. You can't accurately calculate the support amount without it. The third and fourth inputs are specific, high-cost child-related expenses. These are the costs for the children's health insurance premium and any work-related childcare costs. The amount that one or both parents pay each month for the children's portion of the health, dental, and vision insurance premium is credited in the calculation. Similarly, if you need to pay for daycare or after-school care so that you can work, that significant expense is also factored into the formula, and the responsibility for it is allocated between the parents. So the mediator will sit with you, and together you will input parent A's gross income, parent B's gross income, the number of overnights, the health insurance costs, and the childcare costs. You hit calculate, and the software generates a number. That number is what's called the guideline amount of child support. It's the amount a court would almost certainly order. Once you see it, the mystery is gone. The fear of the unknown is replaced by a concrete figure you can plan around. I once worked with a couple, let's call them David and Lisa. David was an engineer and made a good salary. Lisa had been a stay-at-home mom for 10 years and was just starting to re-enter the workforce part-time. David was consumed with fear that he'd be paying so much in child support, he'd have to live in a tiny apartment and never be able to afford to take the kids on vacation. Lisa was terrified that without his support, she and the kids would slide into poverty. The argument was brewing before they even sat down. Instead of letting them argue, I just pulled up our state's child support calculator on the screen. I said, let's just run the numbers. No commitment, let's just see what the law says. We put in David's income from his pay stub. We put in Lisa's part-time income. We put in the 265 overnights for Lisa and 100 for David that they had agreed to in their parenting plan. We put in the $450 a month David was paying for the family's health insurance. We clicked the button. The guideline support number appeared on the screen. There was a long silence. Then David said, "Oh, okay, I can do that. That's less than I was afraid of." And Lisa said, "Okay, I can make that work. That's more than I thought I'd get." In 5 minutes, an issue that could have spawned months of bitter litigation was resolved. That's the power of demystifying the process. But the work isn't done once you have that monthly number. That base child support amount is intended to cover the basics: shelter, food, utilities, and clothing. It does not cover everything else. We call these extraordinary or add-on expenses. This is where a good mediator earns their keep, by helping you plan for the future. What about unreimbursed medical expenses, like copays, orthodontia, or prescription costs? What about extracurricular activities, the cost of soccer league, piano lessons, or summer camp? What about school-related costs like field trips, laptops, or tutoring? And what about the big-ticket teenage items like car insurance, a cell phone, or prom? If you don't have a plan for these things in your agreement, they will become a source of constant conflict for the next decade. Your mediation needs to clearly define how these expenses will be handled. Will you split them 50-50? Will you split them in proportion to your incomes, which is a very common solution? Is there a requirement to get the other parent's agreement before spending over a certain amount, say $200? Getting this clear now prevents endless future arguments over text and email. And finally, there's the elephant in the room for many American families: college. In most states, the legal obligation to pay child support ends when a child turns 18 or graduates from high school. There is typically no automatic, court-ordered obligation to pay for college. This is a subject for negotiation. Your mediator will guide a conversation about your intentions. Do you both plan to contribute? If so, what does that look like? Will you cap your contribution at the cost of an in-state public university? Does the contribution cover tuition, room, board, and books, or just tuition? Will the child be expected to take out loans or participate in a work-study program? This is a complex conversation, but it is far easier to have it now, when you are already in a problem-solving mindset, than it will be 4 years from now when your child has an acceptance letter in hand and you and your ex have to negotiate from scratch. So, to prepare for this part of your mediation, gather your documents. Your last 2 years of tax returns, your last 3 pay stubs, and a profit and loss statement if you're self-employed. Find out the exact monthly cost for your children's health, dental, and vision insurance premiums. Calculate your average monthly work-related childcare expenses. And make a list of all the current extracurricular and medical expenses your children have. Walking in with this information turns a feared confrontation into a simple, collaborative math problem. And once you have that clear, predictable number for child support, it creates a stable financial baseline from which we can tackle the next, and often more emotionally charged financial topic, spousal support. Unlike the rigid formulas of child support, spousal support, often known by its more intimidating name, alimony, is one of the most misunderstood and emotionally loaded topics in all of divorce. There is no magic calculator. There is no simple, one-size-fits-all answer. And that uncertainty is terrifying. It can feel like a punishment for the person paying it, and a lifeline of survival for the person receiving it. And in mediation, it's a space where feelings of fairness, resentment, sacrifice, and fear all collide. So let's take a deep breath and demystify it. The first thing you need to understand is that in the modern world of mediation and collaborative divorce, spousal support is not a penalty. It is not a reward for being a good spouse or a punishment for being a bad one. It is a pragmatic financial tool designed to do one thing: to build a bridge. Think of it that way. It's a bridge from the shared financial life of a marriage to the separate, independent financial life after divorce. It's not meant to be a permanent destination. It's a structure designed to help the lower-earning spouse get to the other side, where they can stand on their own 2 feet. The entire conversation in mediation will revolve around 3 questions about this bridge. How long does it need to be? How strong does it need to be? And how can we fairly share the cost of building it? The answer to these questions isn't found in a spreadsheet. It's found by looking at a collection of factors. Your mediator isn't just going to pick a number out of thin air. They will guide you through a conversation based on the very same factors a judge would consider if you ended up in court. Your job, in preparing for mediation, is to think through these factors honestly and gather the information to support your perspective. The absolute foundation of this entire discussion is the concept of need versus ability to pay. It's a simple-sounding phrase that contains a world of complexity. The person requesting support must be able to demonstrate a legitimate financial need. This means their reasonable monthly expenses exceed their income, or their capacity to earn income. On the other side of the equation, the person being asked to pay must have the ability to do so after meeting their own reasonable monthly expenses. If the need isn't there, or the ability to pay isn't there, the conversation is often over before it begins. This is why that detailed budget we talked about earlier is not just important, it's everything. Your budget is the evidence of your need, or the proof of your limited ability to pay. The second major factor is the duration of the marriage. This is often the single biggest predictor of whether spousal support will be granted and for how long. While every state is different, there are some common sense principles. A 3-year marriage where both spouses are young, healthy, and employed is a very different scenario than a 25-year marriage where one spouse left the workforce 2 decades ago to raise the children. In many jurisdictions, a marriage of 10 years or more is considered a long-term marriage, which can open the door to longer, or in some rare cases, indefinite support. A general, but by no means universal, rule of thumb that's often used as a starting point for negotiation is that the duration of support might be for a period equal to 1/3 to 1/2 the length of the marriage. Again, this is not a law, but a common starting point in mediation discussions. Next, the mediator will help you look at the standard of living established during the marriage. This doesn't mean the supported spouse is entitled to live an identical lifestyle post-divorce. The reality is, it's almost always more expensive to run 2 households than one, so both parties will likely experience a change in their standard of living. However, the marital lifestyle serves as a benchmark. It helps determine what constitutes reasonable needs. A budget that includes a mortgage on a family home and 2 car payments, reflecting a long-established lifestyle, will be viewed differently than one created from scratch. Tied directly to this are the age and health of each spouse. These factors directly impact a person's ability to work and support themselves now and in the future. A 35-year-old in perfect health has a much different earning potential and a longer career runway than a 58-year-old with a chronic health condition that limits their ability to work. This naturally leads to the next critical factor, the earning capacity of each spouse. Notice the word is capacity, not just current income. The discussion isn't just about what you are earning, but what you could be earning. This requires looking at each person's education, skills, work history, and the current job market. If one spouse has a PhD but is choosing to work part-time in a coffee shop, a mediator may facilitate a conversation about imputed income, meaning they might calculate support based on what that spouse should be earning if they were fully employed in their field. This is also where the sacrifices made during the marriage become critically important. If one spouse put their career on hold for 15 years to be the primary caregiver, their current earning capacity is obviously diminished. The spousal support bridge is designed specifically for this scenario, to provide the financial stability needed for that person to get the training, education, or experience required to re-enter the workforce and rebuild their earning potential. This is why your preparation is so crucial. If you will be the one requesting support, your homework is to do more than just create a budget of your needs. You need to start researching. What would it cost to get that certification you need? How much is a 2-year degree program at the local community college? What are the realistic salaries for jobs you'd be qualified for after that training? You are not just asking for money. You are presenting a practical, data-driven plan for your journey across that bridge to self-sufficiency. This transforms the conversation from one of dependence to one of a temporary, strategic investment in your future. If you will likely be the one paying support, your homework is to get crystal clear on your own finances. You need your budget to be rock solid, accounting not just for your current bills, but for the new expenses you'll have living separately. You need your income documentation to be transparent and organized. The goal isn't to hide the ball or fight tooth and nail. The goal is to present a clear and honest picture of your financial reality, so that you can both negotiate a solution that is sustainable and fair, one that doesn't cripple you financially while still providing that necessary bridge for your spouse. Bringing this information to the table changes the entire dynamic. It moves the conversation away from an emotional tug-of-war based on feelings of what's fair, and into a practical, problem-solving session about building a viable plan for two separate futures. You stop arguing about the past and start co-designing the future. And once you've managed to construct that bridge of spousal support, agreeing on an amount and a duration, you have truly cleared the most difficult financial hurdles of the divorce process. You've established the new, separate cash flow for each household. You have a predictable financial picture going forward. And with that foundation of stability in place, you are finally ready to tackle the last great pillar of divorce finance: dividing the assets and debts you accumulated together. Each household, you have a predictable financial picture going forward. And with that foundation of stability in place, you are finally ready to tackle the last great pillar of divorce finance: dividing the assets and debts you accumulated together. This is the part that most people dread. They picture a brutal tug-of-war over every single chair and coffee mug. But in mediation, it's not a war. It's a puzzle. A very complex, high-stakes puzzle for sure, but one that has a solution. The goal isn't to win by taking as much as you can. The goal is to carefully and thoughtfully separate one financial life into two, in a way that is fair and allows both of you to start your next chapter on solid ground. To solve this puzzle, you first need to understand the pieces. And in the world of American divorce law, all the pieces on the board fall into two fundamental categories: marital property and separate property. Getting this distinction right is the single most important step in the entire process. Marital property is, in simple terms, the stuff you acquired together during the marriage. It's the wealth you built as a team. The key word here is during. It starts the day you say "I do" and ends on a specific date, usually the date of separation or the date of filing for divorce, depending on your state. And here's the critical part that trips so many people up. It doesn't matter whose name is on the title or the account. If your spouse earned a paycheck and put it into a bank account that was only in their name, that money is still marital property. If you bought a car during the marriage and only your name is on the loan and title, that car is still marital property. The law sees a marriage as a partnership. The house you bought together, the 401k contributions made over the last 10 years, the investment account you started, the credit card debt you racked up on family vacations, it's almost all considered marital property. Separate property is the opposite. It's what's yours and yours alone. This includes three main things. first, anything you owned before the marriage. That condo you bought when you were single? Separate property. That stock portfolio you started in college? Separate property. Second, any inheritance you personally received during the marriage. If your grandmother left you $50,000 in her will, that money is your separate property. Third, any gift given specifically to you and only you from a third party. Think of a valuable piece of jewelry from your parents for your birthday. Now this sounds simple enough, right? Your stuff and my stuff from before and our stuff from during. Easy. But this is where the puzzle gets incredibly tricky. Because over the course of a marriage, separate property and marital property often get mixed together. This is a legal concept called commingling, and it's a minefield. Let's go back to that $50,000 inheritance. It's your separate property. But what did you do with it? Did you put it in a brand new separate bank account in your name only and never touch it? If so, it's probably still your separate property. But what if you deposited that $50,000 into your joint checking account, and over the next few years, you both used that account to pay the mortgage, buy groceries, and go on vacation? You have now commingled your separate funds with marital funds to the point where it might be impossible to trace what's left of your original inheritance. In the eyes of the law, you may have unintentionally converted your separate property into marital property. Or let's take the condo you owned before the marriage. It was your separate property, but after you got married, you both moved in. You used money from your joint account, marital funds, to pay the mortgage for 10 years. You used marital funds to renovate the kitchen. Over that decade, the property value doubled. How much of that condo is now marital? The increase in value that came from using marital funds to pay down the mortgage and make improvements is very likely considered marital property that needs to be divided. This is where people get stuck. They get bogged down in arguments about what's fair, what was intended, and who paid for what. A mediator's job is to help you cut through that noise. They will help you look at the facts and understand how the law in your state would likely treat these commingled assets, so you can find a practical solution instead of spending tens of thousands of dollars fighting about it in court. And that brings us to the next critical layer, state law. How your property gets divided depends entirely on where you live. The United States has two different systems: equitable distribution and community property. The vast majority of states are equitable distribution states. The word equitable sounds like equal, but they are not the same thing. Equitable means fair, not necessarily a 50-50 split. In these states, a judge, and therefore a mediator trying to predict what a judge would do, will look at a whole host of factors to decide what a fair division looks like. These factors can include the length of the marriage, the age and health of each spouse, each person's income and earning potential, the contributions each spouse made to the marriage, including contributions as a homemaker, and even marital misconduct in some states. So, in an equitable distribution state, the division could be 50-50, but it could also be 60-40 or 55-45 if the circumstances warrant it. Your mediator will guide you through the factors that are most relevant in your state. Then there are the community property states. There are only 9 of them: Arizona, California, Idaho, Louisiana, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, Washington, and Wisconsin. In these states, the starting point is much simpler. All marital property, what they call community property, is generally presumed to be owned 50-50 by both spouses. The division is a straight, equal split down the middle. Separate property is still separate, but everything acquired during the marriage is split equally. Knowing which system your state uses is non-negotiable. It forms the entire backdrop for your negotiation. It tells you what a judge would likely do if you can't reach an agreement in mediation. This isn't about threatening each other with court. It's about understanding the reality of your situation, so you can negotiate from a position of knowledge and strength. Okay, so you understand the difference between marital and separate property, and you know whether you're in an equitable distribution or community property state. Now, how do you actually do this? The process can be broken down into 3 manageable steps: identify, value, and divide. Step 1 is to identify and list every single thing you own and every single thing you owe, together and separately. I mean everything. This is not the time to be shy or secretive. Full financial disclosure is required by law, and hiding assets will blow up your mediation and land you in serious trouble. You need to create a master list. Start with the big stuff: the house, any other real estate, cars, boats. Then list all financial accounts: checking, savings, investment accounts, retirement accounts like 401(k), and IRAs, pensions, stock options. Don't forget valuable personal property: art, jewelry, collectibles. And then you have to list the debts, the mortgage, car loans, student loans, credit card balances, personal loans. This process can feel overwhelming, but it is the foundation of your entire financial settlement. Your mediator will likely give you detailed forms to help you organize all of this information. Your job, before you even get to that first meeting, is to start gathering the documents: bank statements, mortgage statements, retirement account statements, credit card bills, and tax returns. The more organized you are, the smoother and less expensive the process will be. Step 2 is to put a value on everything you've identified. For some things, this is easy. The value of your checking account is the balance on your most recent statement. But for other things, it's much harder. What is your house worth in today's market? You'll likely need a professional appraisal. What is the marital portion of a pension that won't pay out for another 20 years? You may need a specialized actuary to value that. What is a family business worth? That often requires a forensic accountant or business valuator. This is another area where a mediator is invaluable. Instead of each of you hiring your own expert, which is what happens in a litigated divorce, the mediator can help you agree on hiring one neutral expert. This saves an enormous amount of money and prevents the battle of the experts that clogs up the court system. You get a single unbiased number that you can both rely on for your negotiations. Once you have a complete list of all your assets and debts, with an agreed-upon value for each, you are finally ready for step 3, the division. And here's the secret. You don't have to literally divide every single asset. You don't need to sell the house and split the cash. You don't need to cash out the 401k and split the funds, which would be a tax disaster. The goal is to create 2 balanced columns on a spreadsheet. One for you, one for your spouse. You start putting assets and debts into each column, trying to reach an overall division that feels fair and equitable. Maybe one person keeps the house, which is a huge asset, but they also take the entire mortgage, which is a huge debt. To balance that out, the other person might receive a larger share of the retirement accounts. Maybe one person keeps the newer car with the loan, and the other person keeps the older car that's paid off, plus some cash from a savings account to make it even. It's a giant game of trade-offs. It's about understanding what's most important to each of you and finding creative solutions. This is where the human element of mediation really shines. It's not about a rigid formula. It's a conversation about how to best position both of you for your new, separate futures. You have your list, you understand the rules of your state, and you have the values. This is your toolkit for building the final piece of your settlement. But knowing the theory is one thing. Putting it into practice is another. What happens when emotions run high over a specific asset? What do you do when one of you desperately wants to keep the family home, but the other person needs the cash locked inside it to start over? And how do you untangle what is often the single largest, most complex, and most fought-over asset in most American divorces? We're going to dive into the practical strategies for that next.